Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 623, recorded the weekend of December 26th. I'm your host, Patrick. As promised last week, this will be by myself and pre-recorded for reasons of holiday and lack of news. There's not even a new screenshot this week, but we like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend, and it will probably again be a recorded show and not live on Twitch. But you can catch our full shows on Twitch as well. I have started posting the finished product up there as well. Let's see. You can follow us DDOcast.com with our calendar as well, or DDOcast on Twitter to get stay updated on the cast and stuff like that. This week, we'll get to part 2 of our look at 2020 in review for DDO. And we will also be taking care of the various sales and stuff. So we'll start with the, quote, game news, which is really just the bonus days and the sales. As is typical this time of year, there was no real news. Usually the last 2 weeks of the year with Christmas and New Year's, and especially the last couple years, those holidays have been in the middle of the week. So there's just not really ever any news at this time. The bonus days, as not super typical, are a 20% Kenneth Crafting XP boost through December 27th. Usually they do a longer kind of XP boost during this time frame, but not so much this time. Interestingly, the store sales. You can store more loot, 20% off of Character Bank, Shared Bank, Deposit Box, and Platinum Storage, as well as inventory space and bags. Please be aware with bags, they're generally bound to character. I think they usually say in the description, but I know several people have bought in a bag expecting to put it in their Shared Bank, and it's bound to character, and you can't do that. But all of those sales are through December 31st. Also, through December 31st, the December deals 35% off of the Universal Action Point Tome +1, as well as 50% off of White Plume Mountain bonus items and the Soul Splitter Adventure Pack, and 75% off of Veteran Status. That's all also through December 31st. A couple quick notes on some of those. If the Universal Action Point Tome interests you, and you have a lot of characters, you may find it better to buy the Ravenloft or Sharn. I don't remember. There's one of the two. The upper tier of the expansion pack gives you a Universal Action Point Tome for all of your characters forever and ever, +1. So that may be something that interests you. If it's the Ravenloft one, then that is on sale, 50% off, along with Menace in the Dark and Shadowfell in the market through the beginning of next year. So that sales are also still going. Also, the Veteran Status, you can get that with 1,000 favor on a server. It only unlocks per server, but you may not really need that. That also, I believe, may have been part of some expansion packs somewhere along the way. Other store stuff. Through January 3rd, double bonus points are back. You can also get a +2 racial action point tomes are back in the store. And autos boxes are back all through January 3rd. Get those deals. Those are always really popular. If you're wondering, I saw this as a question in a couple of different places with action point tomes. You can see if you have an action point tome and what level you have it at if you go to your feats list, and special feats is where all of the tomes are listed. The action point ones you can also look. You can kind of look on your action point, your actions enhancement tabs and stuff like that. If you can do the math, but it'll tell you there. You can always reset your enhancement points, and that would definitely tell you. But that can be cumbersome. So. The coupon code for the week, you can get 10 critical heal potions with a coupon code 10 crit heal. That's through December 31st. Also, a reminder that the 14th anniversary coupon code for a Sentient Jewel of the Dragon expires December 31st of this year. That coupon code is Happy14. So if you haven't done that, I recommend you get that now. That will cover the game news. And there is no Chronicle. There's no real even community news this week. So we'll just jump straight into Lightning Post. We did have Fuzzy Duck wrote in regarding our show last week. Says covered a couple of topics. The first one requiring monk combos and finishers. Fuzzy Duck was okay with the number of strikes required to charge those up, but amending it so interrupting doesn't happen from other actions and adding an indicator would be really nice. Also would like to see some extra dark options added for Shintao and light options added for Ninja Spy to help round out their capabilities. That could be interesting. Or I'm not even necessarily sure I'm really on board with separating them at light and dark monk. Maybe just let them be. You could be both. Maybe I don't know. Kind of on the fence about that. But yeah, more Shintao and Ninja Spy both have whole sides of the whole chains in the tree that are only takeable depending on if you are light or dark. So yeah, I hear you there. Raptor mounts would be cool, and they're in keeping with the setting for Talentia Plains Halflings as well as Isle of Dread. Yeah, probably not gonna get Isle of Dread until they can give us Raptor mounts. That just seems like an obvious way for them to make some money. Also, Wide Open Plains and Nomadic People would have a thematic link to the forthcoming Horizon Walker tree, since the plains border on the Mournlands and other areas where things got weird in the last war. So that could link to the planar aspect too. Maybe. I don't think we're going to go in that direction with the Horizon Walker, but, we can see. Definitely not going to get the Isle of Dread for a little bit. Talking about leadership, could work to have a passive R effect, giving a small bonus to allies based on the number of past lives. Would be an option for sure. The first life character running with someone who has both class and racial completionist will get some fairly hefty bonuses, while another person in the party would say 8 will get some boost, but not as much. On bow changes to attack speed, that might mean a chunk of the work is also changing some of the animations. That was already done with two-handed fighting to improve flow, so it might be that pulling out the arrow part of the animation will be trimmed down. Just go with suspension of disbelief and have to only draw and fire instead of arrows appearing, with the arrows appearing magically. That would be an option. To be honest, I don't think I would care. I don't think I really pay that close attention to the fact that I'm drawing a weapon. But yeah, I expect that they've said that they want to adjust attack animation speed. I expect that's going to come with some animation changes myself. So yeah, probably correct there. Fuzzy says he still enjoys Archer character to find her damage capability decent but not amazing for regular attacks. But then I play Deepwood Stalker, so it's far more optimized for single target and it's taken some work to get the right gear and setup. The trick arrows approach from Arcane Archer for stuff like dispelling Shadow Mantle shots plus ability to bypass almost any DR type inherently, still valuable and useful features that aren't as present for other range attack types, except Artificers, which is why they still recommend an Archer Ranger as a first character for newbies to learn the game, simply because there's a lot less pressure for gear. So much comes inherent to the class, it's hard to go unfixably wrong with a build. It's an interesting approach. I don't know if I would totally buy into the not needing a lot of gear, but there's something to be said there. Fuzzy agrees the cosmetic bags would be nice additions. If they can go in a bag that can go into the crafting bank just like ammo, that would be great. And adding more lesser tier rewards to hardcore would make it far more attractive to people with more limited time. They can't focus on it so much, while still allowing space for dedicated players to get the rare treats. Reintroducing the old bounty board system as a way of earning another set of rewards would be a great example, as that'd be far less reliant on running the hardest difficulty, and it could have thematic options, like kill pirate enemies, or kill X number of varieties of hobgoblins. Another way of doing that, I think, you could also just tie in the monster manuals. We have those bonuses there. I'm not sure what the technical capabilities are of doing that, but that would be an option as well. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the news show. So stay tuned for part 2 of our 2020 in review. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up at ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. And you can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates at ddocast on Twitter is the best place. So stay tuned for part 2 of our 2020 in review. All right, welcome back to part 2 of our 2020 year in review. We'll do some fast introductions here. We have in-house Arcot,
Howdy.
Axel,
What's up, everybody?
Asheris.
Hey, you did that out of alphabetical order.
I did. I wasn't really intending to do it in alphabetical order, so that's totally fine by me. And we also have Propane.
Yeah, trying to keep us on our toes, huh? Hello, everybody.
And Sam Scrobo.
Greetings and salutations, everyone.
And we're going to continue our 2020 review. Last week we looked at update 45, which was way back in February, back before our lives were all thrown upside down from a pandemic. And we'll talk about the rest of the year probably this time, which is much less stuff to talk about. And we'll just jump right into update 46, which came out on April 23rd. This is when we got Lost Gatekeepers pack. The new Warlock Pacts came out. We had our random loot overhaul, which we'll probably come back to and talk about with Hardcore. This is also where we got the fix to Spiral and the nerf to Reflection of Wave, which were kind of big things at the higher end. We got UI skinning back, Reaper Tree optimization, what that meant was when you load into the quest, all of your Reaper stuff applies to you then, and it doesn't change when you change your weapons and armor and stuff in the quest, which was happening. This is also when we got the VIP XP boost for having people in your party. So this is the 1% for each player in your party boost. So considerably smaller than update 45, but that's what we got.
Honestly, I really like this update for the UI skinning in particular. I think everybody knows I have a lot of migraine issues. I don't think that's a secret. And because of this update pass, I think there's been this really great influx in UI design coming out from the player base. I always get asked about the one that I'm running lately, and it's I'm going to give a shout out regardless of whether Patrick likes it or not.
I love shout outs.
I believe it's Gothic Bites. They have a dark one that I actually really like. I'm not saying it's perfect because there's a lot of things about it that I don't like, but it does a really great job of kind of fixing some of the issues that I had with the UI in general, just with the color scheming and stuff like that. If I switch to an alt that's not using it, it's harsh by comparison. So for me, the UI skinning getting released and a few more of those things kind of like coming back to the forefront, I think was a big quality of life change for me personally that I didn't realize how much I really liked until just the other day. So the fact that it's here at update 46, that's like the key for that, um, really makes me wonder why I didn't find these UI skins earlier. Because I've used some other skins in the past, but um, they've certainly been an influx since here, and there's a lot of really great ones out there now.
I think if
Yeah, and
you
when switching off of a character like you were saying that doesn't use it, it's really noticeable. It's just much easier on your eyes. I just use the basic Blackbird one. I just want a UI that's as simple as possible, and then it's easiest on the eyes as possible. So it's yeah, it's a really nice change.
and you guys are getting these UIs from the forums, right? Like there's
Yep.
a I think
Yep,
there's like an
a UI
actual
tab.
is there just one thread or is there actually a
No, it's a whole subsection.
Yeah.
If you just scroll part way down the forum, there's a UI section of the forums, and then there's like, I don't know, maybe like
Just search
7
for
or 8.
Rogue's Blackbird. Rogue, I think, is the name of the forum poster. He has a whole forum thread that'll tell you how to do it and how to download it and all that stuff.
It is very easy. You should definitely try it if you're interested, listeners.
Yeah, so what do people think about the rest of the stuff that came in here?
So I'll just speak up. But the thing that this is the most annoying and disappointing thing in the entire year for me was the Warlock Pacts. I was really looking forward to using the Celestial Warlock Pact, and it turned out to be nothing, not nearly as good as I was hoping it would be. I was just utterly disappointed with it.
Question for you with that.
Yeah.
Do you think some of that comes with there was kind of a miscommunication on like some of the details, particularly which save was used for
Yes.
was that part
That's
of it?
part of it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I was for the three previous pacts, Sonic, Fire, and Acid. The pact save damage matched the pact save bonus. So for Sonic it was both reflex. For Fire it was fortitude. For both of them. But I don't know whether and the person that did the new three, the next three, the electric, the negative, and the cold, that was Linabelle, and I don't know that Linabelle appreciated that the fact that the pack damage save was the same as the pack save bonus. So, but for negative, they matched. They were both fortitude. For the cold one, the cold pact, it was will and reflex instead of will and will. And then for the celestial pact, it was reflex and will instead of both being reflex, for example. So I understand why cold needed to be will, because that absolute zero their second special ability was a will save. So I imagine why the pack damage had to be will. But the pack save bonus should also have been will, not reflex.
If I remember correctly, when they were giving us that information, they gave us what your save bonus was going to be. They didn't actually give the information of what the pack damage save was going to be.
That's right.
And everyone assumed,
yep,
because it was the same before, that was true here. So
yep.
I think a lot of people got expected that to be true and built their preconceived notions about what was going to happen based on that.
I gathered equipment. I went out and farmed equipment based on that assumption. And then when it didn't happen to be that way, and a lot of people on the forum spoke out about it.
Right.
And all we got was crickets from Linabelle.
Yeah.
Linabelle never said, oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's this way because X. I did that on purpose. Didn't even say that. It was a mistake, in which case, Linabelle could have just said, oh, sorry, it was a mistake, I'll switch it. Or it was on purpose, working as intended. But Linabelle never said, yes, it's working as intended, and and I did it this way because X. I mean, either one would have been fine.
He did
You
post
know,
something that was always that way, and I remember it being it got missed in the communication because we were given in preview the packed save bonus, not the packed damage save.
right.
And that's what I remember being. But I was wondering how much of that played into there. It sounds like that was kind of a big problem.
It was a lot. It was
Yeah.
a lot. You know, and you know, and then there's some little minor problems like the Abyss pack. I didn't appreciate naming the Abyss pack because it was all negative
Right.
damage. You know, the Abyss is chaos. So, you know, if it had been chaos damage or something like that, fine.
Which would have been
Leave it
fun.
Abyss. Well, it could have been the Maybar Pact. It should have been the Maybar Pact, you know, but I guess they don't like to make it too particular setting, you know, specific. So maybe you don't call it Maybar, but maybe you call it something else
Right.
that had the same equivalent of negative or shadow or something to that effect.
What do we think about the random loot overhaul? Because that was kind of a big thing. And again, we talked a little bit last time about how changes were predicated from information from hardcore. And this was, I felt like they were a little more clear about, like, this is coming out now because some of the feedback we got from hardcore season 1 and 2 was related to I'm pulling gear that I can't use for a couple of levels, and that was something that was already on their radar, so they went ahead and did some work to make that change.
Well, I definitely think there's some choice bits in there. For example, if you're on the TR train, you can pick up like a knockdown. I forget the exact keyword. You can basically pick up like a knockdown ring at level 4. You can pick up some really interesting guards on your armor, I think starting around level 5. So like, again, it's a situation for people who have nothing to really get an opportunity to shine at the mid to low levels. In the high end, I don't think it matters at all. Like once we've gotten, like, I just don't think it does. I've yet to find anything that seems to be valuable post level 20 or even post level 12, to be really honest, except for the double slotted stuff for personalized crafting at the time. Everything else seems to be whatever, with the exception of the fact that I believe this led to the crafting change, which led to the values on the augment revamp,
Right.
kind of all lining up. So this is like the beginning of that snowball. So that I think is a part that we're not going to think about very easily. But for the most part, again, it's for the have-nots to get something a little bit nicer, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I thought that it was long overdue. The loot system was always designed around the various level cap increases and, loot pausing at, certain points and not really progressing well, smoothing all that out and reworking the gear and, reworking the effects and everything like that. Those were all really helpful. And I agree with what, everyone else was saying about how it flows back into then the crafting changes and the ongoing changes to named loot. I think, you mentioned in our last episode about how Sev talked about redoing seal shard scroll stuff potentially at some point as a possible talking point. And all those things are great, I think. Anything that makes the game feel like a game that's flowing from 1 through 30 without having to know the history of when level cap changes happened. And that's why suddenly there's a huge power jump in loot. I think it's great, even though it doesn't necessarily help me too much.
Yeah, I've been leveling up some lower level alts, and it's nice to get something and decide do you want to use it or not. It was like, do I put it in the bank, then I forget about it, and I get too much stuff in the bank. So having the idea, do I want it or not, and not having to store it because I think it looks cool, I think helped a little bit too. So
Definitely, at least for the first month or so, it was kind of fun to look at the new stuff on random loot. Like I was paying attention to it a little bit more. It's kind of fun, I thought.
The only other thing I was just going to say, the only other thing we didn't really talk about was Gatekeepers. And it, for me at the time, I was doing a lot of heroic TRing, and it's a pack that feels like it's tweaked for the wrong direction. How to put that?
It's more
I feel
difficult.
like it should be. It is more difficult. I feel like those quests need to be higher level, or they need to be like 20% of the enemies reduced in clusters. It's just like not quite in line. That being said, in the epic versions, it seems to be about right.
That maybe the Ravens.
Well, apparently ravens are the most dangerous thing in the world right now. So you have to accept the fact that our robotic bird overlords are out to get us now. They're just not spying on you anymore. They're going to take you to dinner.
Well, I was running a favorite soul this year, and I hadn't run a favorite soul in a long time, and I got a renewed appreciation of how annoying the bats and ravens really are.
You know,
Yeah.
I feel like level 3 and
'Cause I
32
usually
is
run
a
melees.
really it's a really rough split, I think, to build content because I mean, it almost feels like these quests. And every time I get into epics, I keep thinking these quests are going to be available similar to when Catacombs or when Borderlands are, like in the low 20s. I think that would have made more sense for them, and then they could have balanced them a little bit better. But I agree with you. I think they're balanced more for the level 32 side than they are for the level 3 side, and it just doesn't quite work out.
Sure.
Again, that being said, it's another area that it once you get through and you pick up these random things, there's like a lot of like just exceptionally good things that come out of there, both at the level 3 range and the level 32 range, I think, right? So it's like it is a good pack to like learn and get the hang of, but it is a the learning curve for those quests are a wall. It may even be slightly inverted curve. Like you may be climbing backwards to try to get the hang of those quests because they are very tough for the level in particular.
Right.
I will say, like, that none of the ones besides the last one are particularly long quests, and having shorter quests is always kind of fun.
Especially at that level, right?
Yeah.
The Sacred Bounty, I think it feels long. That to me is the one that feels like the most problematic.
Really?
The last
Interesting.
the last one can be difficult in a lot of places, especially what is it, the green room? I don't know what they're called. Some of those combats can be problematic. But yeah, for me, Sacred Boundary is the one that's was initially the most difficult. At a certain point, you figure out what you can just run through and skip and turn around and kill everything all at once, or stuff like that. But when you're doing things at level 5 on Reaper by yourself solo, because that's how you play the game, that quest is definitely the longest of the chain, in my opinion.
Interesting. I would have said heart is a problem is the longer one in my experience.
I would say the last quest, if you don't know the puzzles, you can spend a lot of time in there. I know I did the first time through.
If you do the puzzles.
Yeah, if you do the puzzles, you don't have to though. Yeah. It was an okay. I mean, the pack is overall like it was okay. I mean, it's one of these things where it's kind of hard to complain about personally, and because it was basically free to everybody because this is when they started to do the free giveaway in the year. So it's just kind of bonus content in my eyes.
It's kind of interesting based on what we had talked about last time about catacombs. Like I actually found that I kind of preferred this to catacombs at the level. And probably that's in large part because I've done catacombs a lot more. And that's, this was kind of new. There was some gear there, a little, not as much gear, but there was some new.
I feel like that is a critique that a lot of vets have. Like, I'm just tired of X.
Yeah.
Because you run it all the time. And again, it's that permanent TR. What I thought was going to be the forever TR, because I never thought I was going to be able to get through it all.
Right.
Right. As that guy, I learned to enjoy quests on the variation depending on what level I was, or maybe occasionally mix it up by doing something that I just not familiar with or don't do. Like, I'm not a guy who likes slave lords, right? So I didn't run that very often. But whenever I felt like I needed something to spice things up, I might throw it into a rotation. Lost Gatekeepers just worked itself into my rotation. It
Mhm.
just became something because I felt like there was a missing there. There was a void in the XP chain, especially if you're, again, like the way I kind of am, where I just did everything on Reaper, whether it was Reaper 1 or Reaper 4, didn't matter. And so the content that I used to do in that place didn't have the Reaper option, the Splinter Skull. So like it gave me a Reaper option. So in my mind, that was nice. But I think that a lot of people, especially vets that have run things like literally hundreds of times or thousands of times, they're going to lean towards the new thing over the old thing. Where even if you start looking at if you look at it from an empirical point of view, like, and on a base set of scoring, I feel like these quests would score lower than Catacombs.
I think part of my experience was I felt like I was getting more XP faster out of these quests than I was out of Catacombs.
That does not seem like a logical possibility to me. I would like to
Yeah, I
see that
agree.
test.
I would say this though: Catacombs can be tough depending on the character you're playing at that level. Any quest where you got a lot of undead can be challenging for some
Sure.
classes. So, I mean, I think that the Gatekeepers is kind of more universal, where everyone will probably feel like they're doing okay in there.
Oh, I thought you were going to say everyone could get eaten by a bird, because that's true.
Well, that's true too. That's always fun.
Yeah. Those ravens are fast and brutal.
That's
Apparently
a
the
foul
most
way to
deadly-
die.
Ready to move on
I see
to
a lot of
47?
raven deaths. Yeah, let's do it.
I think so. This did begin the problem of the Reaper tree login to the quest issue, right? This is
Yeah.
the last big thing where you get like what is it, like a minute and a half penalty box for stepping into the quest on Reaper.
And out, depending on your experience. I don't usually find it to be a minute, but yeah, it's longer. But the thing I'll say about that on the other side though is coming from a place of doing raids on Reaper and with people who like were really starting to build up those Reaper points and stuff like that. This is better. A better experience, at least for me, because if like I recognize that it takes a little time to log into and out of quests now, but being in a place where switching weapons or switching armor would lag you out in the middle of a raid because it was reapplying all of your Reaper points, or even I noticed it on hardcore season 2. I was running a bear tank, and when my rage ended, it would reapply my Reaper points, and even with only like I think at the time I really noticed it, like I had like 8 points at the time. Like there was a point, and in a hardcore, that little bit, that hitch of lag is a lot more threatening and dangerous and scary than it is on live. So like I really noticed that this change is being it's a sucky experience of loading in, but everything else about it is a better experience for me.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion one way or the other that it's better or worse. I just wanted to point out that this is where that came
Yes,
from.
absolutely came from here. This is where it started.
Yeah, and your opinion on whether it's good or bad could definitely vary.
Especially if
Carry on.
you don't have very many Reaper points and you're going into a quest with someone who has a bunch, and you're like, whoa, why is it taking so long? Well, it's loading a lot more onto these other people and stuff. So
Well, also when you have like a full group of people going into like a Reaper 8 quest, and it's like ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. Like I'm gonna go get a drink, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Which is, again, I don't mind that so much. But it affects other people's a lot more. I also think that it has affected the teleportation handler in some degree.
Yeah.
Which is something that I did mention in during the Ask Seven Everything portion of the Q&A when we went to our fantasy, like, ask us anything, like what a wish list type thing. I did mention that I would very much like to get that handler looked at. But I think, again, this all started becoming more problematic during this change.
Yep. All right. Update 47. This came on October 12th. So what? Almost 6 months? Is that 5 or 6 months?
Well, October is the 10th month.
6 months. Yeah. So it was about 6 months in between. And we'll talk about some of the stuff that happened in between there. But this is where we got Legendary Vision of Destruction, Legendary Lord of Blades, and Legendary Master Artificer. We also got the standalone quest Promise of Fire. And technically this stuff was related to Feywild, but this is where we also got Feydark Illusionist, Shifter, and Razor Claw Shifter.
I just want to point out the reason why some of these legendary raids didn't come out is directly Patrick's fault.
Oh?
You running stuff you're not supposed to.
We only did that for Lord of Blades.
I'm just saying, if you would run stuff that you're supposed to run when you're supposed to run it, we would have got it on time.
If it was in the game, was I not supposed to run it?
I don't know. It's fine. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I regret nothing. It was a blast.
There you go.
No, I was so glad they added these. I mean, VOD in particular is one of my favorite raids from back in the day, and I've run that a bunch since the new ones come out. So, really good raid.
Those Orthons hit like a Mack truck.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
man.
they do.
And I think that, having to be constantly on top of your curses, I just think that's a fun mechanic in the raid.
Do you?
I love these raids.
I also
These are
think,
great.
there are players that I don't know if they were playing when these raids were originally popular. So for us vets, oh, here they are again. But there's a population of the game that says, oh, here's something new, even though it's been around for a while.
Lord of Blades and Master Artificer did not have a long shelf life either.
They did not. Yeah.
So.
These are great raids. Most of them are fast to get done too, which I really like. And I don't know, it really kind of rejuvenated the raiding scene because I think that Too Hot to Handle has been a challenging raid since it came out, and that really just left Project Nemesis as the main raid we've gotten here relatively recently. And so this just made the whole raid train or the raid rotation a lot more enjoyable. And there's some nice items in there too, some things that actually have value for you, which is great.
Especially
Yeah,
if
for
you
sure.
weren't
They did a
doing the
nice
other
job
stuff.
on them.
I just say too that I really love how they made the optional for Lord of Blades and Master Artificer meaningful. Like adding another extra chest. Like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a mechanic I liked. Maybe a little high on the. I mean, I'm not complaining, but they give a lot of threads because of that. But I'm not sure if the thread number was balanced super well in that regard. And obviously the optional in Master Artificer is like insanely easier than the one from Lord of Blades. But I like that they're at least meaningful, and I hope that kind of continues to give us a reason to do an optional in a raid.
You can always
I
tell
agree.
when I don't do stuff very often because that's when I'm quiet. But I've done these a little bit since returning to Epics again. And I just always feel like the little kid just sitting there doing whatever I'm told in these raids in particular. Where in some of the other raids, I feel like I get to be a little bit more of a team player or take on more roles or something. But again, I think that's just due to some of the changes. And I will say that I used to really dislike Lord of Blades because I used to always get assigned the same role of kiting the dogs.
Yeah.
But now they just kill the dogs. So I feel like the worst thing about Lord of Blades is no longer a factor. So I feel like they're more fun than they used to be in that regard because some of the unpleasant jobs have been removed. But that may have just been how my server in particular took on these.
No, that was true for Kyber too. In the original, in the Heroic and Epic version when it came out, it was very common to kite the dogs because the amount of time it took to kill them was a lot higher. The Legendary version, that's much less true. They're a speed bump, not a roadblock.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
again,
same for
me,
Unslowing too.
Promise of Fire, I think, is a fun one. I really enjoy that puzzle, the big spike puzzle in particular. I dislike that every monster seems to be immune to crowd control except for Web.
And that's gross,
Um,
isn't it?
because everything's like a scorpion, right?
Yeah.
So I don't not a big fan of that, but I think the quest is like a fun change. Whoever like designed that had was inspired, I think. The puzzles are interactive. The like I don't want to say it's a trap per se, but like there's an optional there's a drop down type optional thing where you can kind of end up exploring for a little bit out of the way for no good reason. There may be an optional down there.
Yeah, there's some puzzle wheels down there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of action down there, but it feels like a good solid quest. Um, where again, I think that's level 6. Level 6 had a lot of content in general. So it's you don't always think about running it in there, but it's got a lot of interesting play to it. So I'd recommend people kind of think about it.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
in Epics, I was just gonna say in Epics, it also feels very good and in high demand.
Yeah, it's one of my definitely one of my favorite quests that came out this year. I mean, if particularly if someone's into soloing and flower sniffing, it's a really good quest just to go in there, snoop around, and go through everything that quest has to offer. I mean, there's that cool little drop down area. The traps were interesting because I don't believe there's any way to disable them. You have to kind of figure your way through them, and then there's the really cool puzzle at the end with the grid and there's a puzzle that lines up with this kind of grid trap room that it's kind of a you have to pay attention to the DM text and just figure out how those two tie in and to get through it. But it's a lot of thought went into it. It's a really good quest. People should look at it more. I think it got a little overlooked this year.
I definitely overlooked it.
I
I've run
did.
it
Yeah,
I
once.
haven't run it once.
if you haven't run it, like go in there solo and just explore it. It's a really good experience.
Well, I mean, to be fair, an awful lot of stuff hit that update that affected people at the end game a lot more than you would think, right? 3 legendary raids.
Yep.
Like that kind of makes one quest a little bit, overshadowed. But for those of us who, again, during this time, you were doing the TR train or working on race jewels or whatever, and you're like, wow, it's nice to have another little quest in there that's not 13 quests, like the Lost Gatekeepers or however many there are. It's not like this massive pile that change your rotation. It's just a little extra thing that you can work in sometimes. And
Yeah, and there's good
it was a
reason
fun
why
quest.
people overlooked it. I mean, not just the raid, the new raids, but we had the Feywild coming out soon, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff going on.
there was only 3 weeks between this pack and Feywild, so it's not like
Yeah.
there was a lot of time.
It's kind
And
of insane.
yeah, it's weird. There's such a big gap, and then all of a sudden we get 2 pretty decently sized content drops back to
Well,
back.
that's where. Remember how we talked about before in last week's episode that we talked about the fact that update 45 was like the not impacted by COVID and the workflow changes. And I said we got to keep that in mind, right? And that update 46 probably assume that a big chunk of that was done in advance as well, right? But then some of it clearly was impacted by COVID. And then update 47 was probably all impacted by COVID, right? So switching your entire workflow, getting stuff set up for remote programming, adjusting your teams to get stuff done, like it changed their entire workflow, and that takes time. So plus working on the fact that they're working on update 48 as a big part of this, right? And then having to make changes to 48 based off of what we can get done with this new workflow and the timetable. I really feel like the fact that we got as much as we did out of update 47 really shows how much extra work that they put in.
And
I'm really tough on SSG, but I'm also a big fan, and especially of stuff like this. It's like you can look and see how much love they put into the game because of this much content in an update with so many changes.
And I think the one thing you also kind of didn't touch on with what you're talking about is the other part of the workflow that changes is when now you are working from home. At the same time, your kids are also at home, so you're doing both of those two things, like you're trying to work and also be like the teacher helper for your kids at the same time.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of challenges for people who work at home. So, like my wife and I, we've worked at home for quite a long time. Of course, my job is nothing compared to like regular people. You know, I just stream video games all the time. That's not a real job, right? But you know, you set up an office, you set up a defined space, you set up a mind and a schedule and a mind flow, saying, "All right, now I'm going into work. We're in the work time." But a lot of people don't have, again, they don't have that opportunity to set this stuff up. They just kind of thrown into it. You know, when you house shop with kids and you're going to work from home, you plan for having an office, stuff like that. These were all things that were thrown on that team, you know, and regardless of how some of us feel about certain things, it was an impact. And the fact that they got to the point that they got to, you got to give people credit for that. It's just so much got done in such a little period of time with all these changes. That to me is the story of 2020. It's not the other nonsense that went with it. It's how much people were able to overcome, especially in DDO.
Sure.
Speaking of overcoming, do we want to talk about overcoming the shifter races? Because
sure. Was there something there that we had to overcome?
yeah, they're bad.
You don't like them?
I don't know. I felt like there's some flexibility to it, but it's a class in search of a home, and it doesn't exist. Like I found one that I thought was relatively close when I put out my Howler Clunky build on the forums, which is basically a wisdom-based a cleric monk build, built around the idea of using the shifter howl as your crowd control effect. But otherwise, I tried several different builds to try to find a home, and it just didn't feel like it fit anywhere. Like it was okay as your barbarian. It was okay as your caster druid. Like it just didn't feel like it sat anywhere. Am I wrong? Is there a build out there? Like I don't know.
I mean, I could give you my answer, but I don't think it's the answer you want to hear either.
I mean, I'll take any answer at this point, but I think
they make a perfectly fine alchemist for leveling.
Oh, do they? Wow.
I haven't spent much time playing them, but yeah, there certainly doesn't seem to be much of a buzz about them around the forums, at least from my experience. And I'm not seeing them too much in game either.
Yeah,
But,
there's some interesting things there. I'm a little surprised they didn't take off as bear builds, like bear tanks, a little bit more.
it feels like it didn't quite fit, right? Like it was just slightly off. Like there just wasn't quite enough to go one way, not quite enough to go the other way.
I think that the thing that stood out to me the most when it came out and people started playing them, I think that if you look at the Razor Claw shifter, there was a lot of buzz about that, and people really seemed to be interested in playing a Razor Claw shifter. And then they put in the racial tree, like their stuff that looked interesting uncenters you, so you couldn't use that with a monk. And I think a lot of the buzz was, I'm going to be a Razor Claw shifter monk, and I'm going to combine these things. And then they put in a limitation that you can't. And I think that, to me, that it felt like that took a lot of the energy out of that equation.
Well, not just that, but the regular shifter rage takes you out of being centered as well. So like it just kind of nerfed all the interesting interactions with the monk, which it made sense for it to go with, right? Like it looks like it should work.
And
I don't know,
there's
man.
some balancing reasons behind that I understand, but I think that really took the wind out of the sails as it was coming out.
I think they could tweak it, and they could do some stuff with it. I've heard people suggest something like a racial sprint boost would probably be enough to give it some love. I've heard allowing certain things to not completely uncenter you, or et cetera, et cetera. So I would like to see them tweak it a little bit. I don't know if it's getting the love that it deserves because it looks amazing.
Mhm.
Like the graphics on it look really good. The tech animations look really good. The movement looks really good. It's just
I think my kind of leaning would be to have it be something like if you have this enhancement while you're raging and not in a monk stance, you get these things, right? So you can like to make it so that they're not exclusive, but to say that like it doing one will completely or remove you from the other. But if there was a okay, here's a little bit of a boost, and if you're not centered, you also get this extra boost or something to that effect.
well, I think what you do is you make it where kind of like what's the arty thing and the inquisitive thing? Right? With the
Oh,
endless fuselage and the other
no
thing.
holds barred.
And no holds barred, right? Where
Yep.
if you have both of them, you get a boost.
Mhm.
I think that they could do something like that where it tidies it up really nice and they could still keep the balancing things in place. You know, so it could be like if you take this and you also have this, you get this extra bonus as well. I don't know if they'd be into something like that, but again, because of the tree, I feel like the race is kind of a miss, and I'm really hoping that they could just make some tweaks to it here in the next few months and make it the hit that it deserves to be, because it is a very interesting race that I would like to spend more time in, but it just right now there's no home. Give it a home.
Maybe some synergy with Druid as well would be an option.
Yeah. Druid would be really good. You could tweak the barbarian stuff a little bit more, maybe some fighter stuff. Like it could go in a lot of places. I feel like they wanted it to be the tank race, but then they didn't make it the tank race. I feel like they wanted it to be the Castaway Rage race, but then it doesn't really matter.
If they wanted
And
it to be the tank race, then they missed the. Well, can you use the shifting while you're in a defensive stance? Other than the
no,
Druid one, yeah. So that was never gonna. And like I said, bear tank maybe it definitely feels more. It feels even more niche to me than Tiefling does.
yeah, it doesn't have the home that it makes sense in.
Right.
You know, and you're competing against what's the lay on hands one that
ASMR.
everyone's always ASMR. Thank you. Like you can't compete with ASMR, then you're not the tank race.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying that you have to compete on every level, but you have to have some way to compete because otherwise you're going to have that default. And it just so much amazing work was done for it to become the worst race. You know, for a pay to pay race. It may even be worse than the free to play race. It may be the worst race in the game, with that looks the best, has the most interesting movement. You know, like it doesn't have a leap. It doesn't have things that make it extra special. And I would like to see it be tweaked a little bit.
I think the thing that makes Shifter special is rage. I mean shifting, but it's essentially a rage, which we already have in the game, and so it doesn't feel special because it's there. And the stuff that you immediately say, oh, synergy stuff, like, oh wait, but I can't use it with the thing that makes the most sense to synergize with.
Right. It doesn't synergize because it breaks that.
Right. On the flip side, I feel like going into update 47, Feydark Illusionist did not have a lot of buzz, and I see that being used a lot, especially the color spray.
Feydark Illusionist is like the second best thing to happen in 2020. Like it is very close to Alchemist. Like it's right there. It's like Alchemist came out, started dominated everything, and Feydark Illusionist like, hi, I would like to dominate everything. It's like, no.
Which, by the way, the two of those go together really well.
Paladins are going to be using Feydark Illusionist for crowd control now, so that's fair. Oh, also for hidden damage. So now instead of just being a PDK, everyone can do it. Oh, okay. Oh wait, you have all the. It costs 3 action points to get 100 mana. not 6 to get 90. Like, okay, this doesn't seem fair. Can pick up magic missile immunity for like nothing. Oh, okay. Also, a permanent blur, like, and blade barrier. All right, what this shot? Like, you just want to flip the table. It's such a good tree that people are, you can cherry pick from forever. It really is like the second best thing to happen to DDO in a really, really long time.
I feel like Axel's chomping at the bit here.
Well, that's why I try to shut up. So let him
No,
go.
no. I was just gonna say I actually haven't gotten, other than playing with it on Lamani, I haven't gotten much time. I want to get around to using it, but I've heard good things
Do it now before it's worse.
before it goes away. Yeah, nerf. Yeah.
I mean, the most obvious low-hanging fruit to me on nerfing it is to reduce the DC on color spray, but
I
it's
mean, it is
surprisingly
high.
effective.
It is good.
But that one that was really kind of funny to me. That I just remember on the Lamania forums that Dark was not very. It did not seem to have a lot of momentum and excitement behind it, and Razor Claw and Shifter did.
It
And
didn't look good on paper, right?
yeah,
Like on paper, Shifter and Razor Claw look really, really good. But when you put it to practice, it misses a lot. Dark Illusionist doesn't look as good on paper, but it's like a 10 out of 10 in practice.
Yep.
And it's just surprisingly how good it is.
So moving on to update 48, which was Fables of the Feywild, which came out November 5th. Like we said, about 3 weeks after. And this is where we got Fables of the Feywild, obviously, sans the raid. And we also got the augment revamp and chat server changes. Chat server changes being that you it doesn't appear in your party chat until it goes through, basically, in your chat until it goes through. We've kind of talked about Fables of the Feywild recently, so I don't know that we really need to rehash into that.
Yeah, it's really tough, right? Like we just did a deep dive not that long ago on Fables of the Feywild, and I feel like most people know about it in general. It's definitely has some issues, especially for people like myself with the migraine issue. But the gear is right on the verge, right, of being amazing. When the raid comes out and the raid gear comes out, I think people are going to, a lot of stuff's going to click together fully for people. But man, people love those unicorns. I cannot express how much people seem to love those things. I like that cloak, the winter cloak, a lot. But man, people love those.
Wait till they give us the huntsman steed.
Oh, what's that going to be like?
It's the horse with the flames for hair.
Oh, a nightmare.
I mean, this one was
Yeah,
white
that'd
and
be
blue,
sweet.
but yeah, but getting nightmares. Axel, you weren't on the show when we talked about Feywild. Why don't you give us your
Right.
quick take on it?
Well, I'm, like Samus said, I'm really chomping on the bit to for the raid to come out, because a lot of the loot I want is in the raid.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, as far as the expansion overall, I'm still kind of formulating my opinion of it. It's somewhere, I think, in the middle in terms of the all the expansions they put out. It looks beautiful. I mean, that's the best thing I think about it. It's just gorgeous, especially the adventure area. I think, compared to Sharn, I think I actually enjoy the quests more overall than Sharn. I think just because there's less, I guess, annoying mechanics. Like there's no, like, the Forge race were pretty annoying in Sharn, and the kind of Green Goblin platform flying stuff like in Just Business, I wasn't a fan of those kind of mechanics. But yeah, it's other than like a frosty reception, I really don't dislike any of the quests.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a theme going on here unexpectedly. I'm really looking forward to running this in heroics because I haven't yet, and I really kind of think that the level range that it is at in heroics, I think I'm really gonna like. especially now that they've tweaked the balance a little bit. Because we talk about the quests, mentioned a few times, the quests that you've run hundreds and hundreds of times, and the level 6 quests don't really excite me that are pre Feywild.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You still run at level 5. You still run, or level 7. Excuse me. At level 7, you still run Three Barrel Cove, right? Like you can't. Three Barrel Cove is too good to put it
Right.
aside. However, at level 8, after you finish Three Barrel Cove, you go over to the Feywilds. You run that. It basically carries you almost to 10. Like it works that spot really well, especially for people who don't have a lot of 6s that they're into or don't like the 7s. I think 7, the level 7 quests, which for me would translate to level 9, are very strong. But there's a lot of people who don't like some of those quests. Like they don't like the Pit, for example. They don't like Violence. They don't like Tier de Con.
They're also
Those
longer
are
quests.
Those are my go-to quests.
Yeah.
At level 7. A lot of people don't like those. So like this is a really nice area to push you from 8 to that 10 level pretty nicely.
Those are all the quests that you all mentioned, they've been around forever.
Sure. Right. They're long quests, long time existing quests. But again, they're also some of the ones that are the most colorized or polarizing. People either love or hate the Pit.
Yep.
People either love or hate Tier de Con. Tier de Con is a very challenging quest sometimes. Where, with the exception of the underwater quest, which I can't think of it.
Lost Locket or something or other.
Yeah, something like that. Nobody seems to have an unliked quest, right? Like nobody hates any of the quests except for the underwater quest because it just doesn't quite work.
Because it's underwater.
Right, I guess. Well, I don't
the underwater
think it's
mechanic is not fun.
It's probably the underwater mechanic, like for situations of like all these weird spells that should work don't.
Yeah.
And these other spells that shouldn't work sometimes do. Yep. But with the exception of that one quest, I don't think anybody's got a quest they don't care for.
I don't like Frosty Reception, but that might just be me. I just don't like all the NPC running around and talking, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't know them well enough to like specifically rattle them off directly. I can tell you which quest that I think is the most fun, which is the yelling at windmills, or the party at the house. I can't where you have to trick them into leaving. Like those two quests are a lot of fun. I don't know if we have the quote unquote a lot of fun quests from Sharn, right? We don't have the quote unquote a lot of fun quest from any of the expansion packs.
Well, to be
good.
fair, Ravenloft is a horror gothic theme. So
right.
I don't think fun is really the goal.
Exactly.
That fun is the same way. And Sharn is much more of that like noir kind of thing going on.
Right.
And,
yeah. But these are fun. Yeah. Like they're very legitimately fun.
Yeah, they're very accessible too for people. Like there's not really any crazy mechanics that you got to learn. They're all the quests for the most part are pretty straightforward.
Also, you can run the quests in any order you want.
Yes.
Which is from a lore story perspective kind of silly, but from a gameplay quality of life fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, and I realized that after the first time through, and my second runs and later, I was like, wait, why don't I just do a circle around the wilderness area and just do them that way? So that's what I've been doing.
I mean, we did it on our live stream for DDOCast. Wow, we did it in order because it kind of makes sense to. But especially if you're running it the first time, running it in order is, I think, worth it.
Yes, just understand the story and to experience that. I mean, there's a lot of text to read, and if you don't do the stuff in order, you're not going to understand what's going on.
So, Samus, I got to add, we talked about Feydark being the second best thing for the year. Is the Augment revamp the best thing for the year?
No, obviously Alchemists are the best thing for the year.
Okay.
The Augment revamp was really good. There's a lot of positive things. I have a soapbox to get on that I feel like I've gotten on many times in the past, so I'm going to not get on it today. But it's really nice to have a situation where if you need to fill a stat, you can fill a stat.
Mhm.
It's really nice to be able to kind of work some of this stuff in. Like it really helps smooth out some of your gear Tetris. It's certainly very nice. It's still missing some things, and there's some opportunities that SSG has. Don't know if they're completely heard it or not. I probably have to tell like a couple other people directly, and then they'll probably take the idea and run with it. Or I'll make a forum post or something. I've like recorded rants on my stream about it. And I just don't know if it's caught the right ears yet, but it certainly has laid the groundwork to be the greatest part of 2021 if they want it to be.
Yeah.
Like it is a very nice change, and I'm glad that they've made it. And it's also created a chase for people who need a chase. Like there's a lot of people out there who are done and they don't have anything else to chase for. This gives them that. So I'm pleased that some of these things have come together. I'm not going to be like Patrick in particular, I think, and talk about how the chase is too much. I think the chase is probably
You're talking about
where it needs
the
to be.
soul forged augments right now.
I am talking about the Swordforge augments. Would you like to get on your soapbox about how there's too much chase there?
I don't think the amount of chase is the problem. I think the specificity of the chase is the problem.
That's fair.
Getting the same raid item multiple times is the part where getting 3 raid items, fine. I don't have a problem. But it's get the same one is the part that I'm still a little leery on. We'll see how it plays out and continues to play out. But I've already seen people are hoarding specific raid items. They're also generally the ones that people don't want other than that. But
again, I like the idea / don't see a problem with the fact that people are chasing certain things or hoarding certain things or being excited for some of these things again. It certainly, as I understand it, has revitalized certain raids again.
Sure.
So like on Serlona, Tower Despair, right? That's what it's called. Literally, I don't think I ever. The Father that Just also. Is there not anything that comes from Tower Despair?
No. Tower Despair doesn't have an epic version.
I was wondering why someone was telling me that has come back then. Because I feel like we were flagging for that for a reason, and people were telling me there was something that came back to life.
I got nothing there.
Change. But yeah, I've not seen, like, again, I don't usually pay too close attention to the raiding scene. I'm usually just like whatever comes along, I'll jump into. But I was playing with people specifically to reflag for some of these things because this augment revamp has happened, which is interesting. When you see longtime players who taking their alts and flagging for certain things so they can do these raids that are kind of necroed, it's kind of nice. Especially for people who are still on the TR train and are grinding out first times nonstop. It's nice to have those kind of, hey, don't you need somebody to go do this? Like, yeah, I do. All right, let's go. So, and that stuff is directly thanks to the augment revamp.
I think the system, the mechanics of the system just feel a lot cleaner too.
I mean, the main thing I'm excited for is I just want to see new augments come out in the future, just so we have more uses for that stuff. Yeah,
the one that everybody wants. The thing I love most about the augment revamp, I think, is that I don't have to unlock an item to put it into the system to augment it.
Oh, I just assumed that you had to unlock it.
No, you don't have to do that anymore. It's great.
It's fine. It's fine.
But
I don't know. The voice of the master drama was kind of interesting for like a minute. It never bothered me because I basically play one character anyway, so it wasn't a big deal.
I like that it's bound to account now. I think that's better.
Yeah, for me, it's just it's nice because instead of having it to go in my TR cache, it can go in the shared bank instead.
Yeah.
Like that's to me, that's the only change. But for people who ran a lot of alts, I can understand how that would be really important.
All right, I think what we'll do is we'll end the conversation this week here, and we'll do a part 3 to talk about the not update specific stuff. So Axel, why don't you plug your stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Axel's DDO channel. I do a lot of different DDO type videos, DDO music covers, all kinds of stuff.
And Samus?
Yeah, I just want to plug DDO Axel on YouTube. No, it's actually a good channel, by the way, for those of you who don't watch it, like all 6 of you who are listening to this that are not subscribed over there. Somebody dropped a video this morning, or I think, and it hit like 1,000 views in like 2 hours. So a little bit jealous because my YouTube channel at Samus Garobo does not have quite that number of people watching, but my Twitch.tv, also at Samus Garobo, is a little bit better. So you can check us out there. Of course, Twitter, Facebook, all the places you want to go. If you're interested in the bus conversion, however, that is the USS Fat Halfling on Instagram. And a lot of people actually are really interested in what is going on with that particular story. So for those of you who are interested, Instagram.
I think Axel's key to the YouTube numbers is his videos are short. They're not like DDOcast videos that are 3 hours long.
Look,
Yeah,
bro.
definitely.
I don't know
If
how
you
to
try
not
to keep
talk.
it in the 10 to 15 minute area, that's what people
Yeah.
like.
It's a podcast. It's a lot of YouTube video.
But I mean, I think your show's spread out on a lot of different
It is.
platforms. So
It definitely is.
who's to say, like, yeah, how many listeners you have?
I don't know. I don't usually bother checking the numbers.
1 million. He's got 1 million.
Anyways,
In my heart.
thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to these guys here for joining me, and to all the contributors for DDOcast, and to Saying Some Games on Wizards of the Coast, and to Cybers for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. And if you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com, or you can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. And hey, these guys too, like, they're always talking about stuff. Leave a comment there and engage them in conversation. I'm sure they'd really appreciate that as well. And you can follow us on Twitter at DDOcast. The best place for cast updates and that stuff. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.